Hello, creatives, community, and kind folks, and discussions that I have no idea the context of, but I'm having fun with it. So, welcome everyone. Again, creatives, communities, and community and kind folks. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. Yes, I'm down in the right hand corner. I wanted to share with you a document that I'm working on that encompasses the the thing that gives me the most passion, that has garnered me attention from various other communities and individuals in the RPG community, and the thing that kind of separates me from everyone else. Not that it's a smart thing, but it's a truism, and that is exploration. So, the third pillar of exploration, Thursday, is my jam. That's the thing that, like, it fuels me. It's what has taught me a lot about gaming. It is the atrophied muscle, I believe, in tabletop RPGs, but I feel like it's starting to get a um, much greater attention in tabletop RPGs today, and I'm glad that I have a small part in making it happen. So today we're going to talk about things that uh, tools and even thought processes that we can use that have nothing to do with murder slaying and murder hoboing all the enemies you have in your tabletop role playing games. I'm talking about alternate objectives and then all the crap that prevents the PCs from getting to that win condition, since, you know, murder killing everything can get kind of boring after a while. And this is the way we're going to take, like, our the most boring encounters: bandits on the road, goblins in the cave, maybe an ogre in the forest, and take that and like twist it and make it even better. And I really didn't have an intention of even sharing this document with you guys. Everything that I do is like outlined, and I fill in the bullet points and I just expand from there. But I was like, you know what? I'll show the dirty laundry, and we'll go over some of these. Now, mind you, these are lists, so I like to take damp toilet paper, throw it all at the wall, and see what sticks. So be aware that even when I write things, I tend to overwrite and use extremely sharp scissors and just start cutting away and deleting what's there's a movie term. It's like kill your darlings or something. There's a similar ism in tabletop role playing games, but yeah, essentially that's what we're going to do. When he's like, yeah, that opening paragraph is how I DM'd my games. Books don't belong to the table. It's playtime. Let's go. Let's go. Okay, so let's get into this little document, and I will explain to you what it is that what I am doing here. So, at some point, this will become a real thing that I'm going to publish. It's probably going to be inserted into the hardback version of the cinematic environments I was working on before, but that's not important. So, one part is about cinematic action, and something that I stole from Robin D. Laws, who I believe wrote or a major writer for Feng Shui, and just talks about cinematic action and how to do it, costs and rewards and such. Um, that kind of thing. Actually, I will describe it. I wasn't going to. Let's get into it. So, uh, I am a visual person, and I love cinematic action, jumping across tables, swinging on chandeliers, um, Supermaning by running one or two steps on the wall and Supermaning somebody in the face, punching people in the throat, and all that kind of stuff. And for me, there are basically two ways to do it. You can either not use dice or use costs and rewards. So in the no dice instance, and this is the easiest way to do it, basically, simple outcomes do not limit complex actions. So, in other words, if an adventurer wants to do have a simple outcome, all they want to do is hit the opponent or move across a room or uh, any number of things that are very simple in the outcome, then allow creative space to make a complex action and just don't roll for it. So an example would be classic Dungeons and Dragons. PC says, I want to take my longsword and I want to strike the bugbear. Oh, okay, well, you roll dice. Did I hit? Did I miss? And we move on. Sure, but after about 5 times of that, you just start to go, oh, what happened? Right? So instead, and this doesn't cost anything except to be creative and to just accept the fact that maybe the player character wants to, dodge once or twice from the bugbear, roll through their legs, kick them in the butt. Bugbear turns around. PC rips their helmet off, smacks him in the face, and when he's reeling from it, takes the sword and shoves it through their throat. Right now, I can literally hear some people cringing at the, well, you can't just roll through their legs. You can't just take your helmet off and swing it around. That's an improvised weapon. You can't. And it's like, no, no, relax. If all they want to do is strike the opponent, and especially if they kill them, let them describe how they do it. It doesn't matter. It costs zero. So simple outcomes, complex actions. If someone wants to parry, dodge, roll, jump, flip, choke, whatever, hit with the hilt of their blade, all that kind of, let them do it. Let them do it. If the outcome is just simple, if the outcome is like, oh, well, you take the bugbear out, then let them take out the bugbear by slamming their face in an open refrigerator door. I'm thinking of a Rumble in the Bronx with um um wow, uh why did I forget his name already? The wow, my brain just stopped with that. Come on, what's happening with my computer? Eh, Please work. Okay, anyway, there we go. Now it's moving. Oh, you guys are funny. All right, okay, let's get to our co-hosts here who are here live. Michael says, third pillar is where I inject politics, mysteries, curses, cultures, and the like. Using your bandit example, I drill down on why the bandits exist in the first place. Are they displaced veterans, a reaction to political exile, or are they freedom fighters, etc.? You could tell what kind of party you'll have if questions get asked before steel gets drawn. That's if you hope you have a great group of player characters that are like, yeah, I want to know what the hell's going on. Like, why are we being affected by bandits? Are they just starving exiles, or are they, violent sociopaths? Right? John Wright says perfection is not when you can't add anymore. Perfection is when you can't strip any more away. Yeah, yeah, I'm very much like that. Like, I I don't know. I'll write 1,000 words to strip it down to like 250, um, which it feels bad in the beginning when someone overwrites. Sometimes you'll see a movie or TV show or even comic book series or novels where you can tell the person didn't want to get rid of their baby because and made the story worse for it, right? Really good movie directors will delete something that they filmed, spent lots of money and time on, and go, yeah, this doesn't fit, and take it out. Mm-mm-mm. Wayne says, yes, Errol Flynn, best rogue ever. He did all that. Yeah, Errol Flynn, Jackie Chan, Tony Jaa. I mean, there's a bunch of people that like are stunt professionals and such that I feel like are excellent. And to allow those things in the game, like the if a player wants to move across a table, let's say they're at a dinner party and enemies break in, and there's a chandelier on the ceiling, there's a big table with food on it, and there's chairs everywhere, and the players want to move from A to B. They want to move from one side of the table and confront the enemies to protect the nobles that might be attacked. So player A says, hey, I'm going to use my 30 feet of movement, get up from my chair, and move around the table. Great. So player B and C, B says, I'm going to roll across the table, grabbing a knife and fork, and stand before the enemies or something, And then the third one's like, I'm going to um, uh, jump off my chair, jump up to the chandelier, swing across the chandelier, and land on the other side of the table. The instinct is to have the player characters make a roll for B and C to roll across table or swing across chandelier. That's the instinct. Oh, they are performing an action that might have some chance of failure. Let's roll the dice. And usually what happens is, and there's again, I've drilled this down to two ways to handle these things. If you want these actions to keep happening in your game, if you want your players to use all the elements in your game, one is don't bother rolling. That's my if I can give away any information is don't roll. If all they want to do is move from A to B and they've got the movement to go from A to B, why does it matter how they do it? Roll under the table, roll across it, backflip, run across a wall and land on the other side. As long as it's whatever. Okay. Now you might want to say, well, you're in plate mail armor. Doing a parkour maneuver might not be the best thing, narratively, but okay. But if you do want to have a role, here's an issue. Um, which I listed under costs and rewards. The other technique requires some sort of random roll to adjudicate success or failure. This is used when an action is complicated and the game rules have a system in place. This often ends with no benefit to the action taken, but a drawback if failed. And this is where I think a lot of times we have an issue with this. For example, swinging from a chandelier may require an acrobatics or athletics skill roll. Failing the roll means falling, while simply moving around the table costs nothing. Without an equal chance for a reward, there is no reason to have a cost. This will stifle cinematic action within your group. So, for example, you say roll athletics check or acrobatics check to swing on the chandelier. They fail. You say, okay, you fall prone. But what happens if they succeeded? Well, you get across the table. Well, it, the person that walked around the table didn't suffer anything. So your players are going to instantly start going, yeah, I'm not going to do any of that kind of stuff because the minute I fail, I suck. And I don't get anything for succeeding with having to have a check. So if a player has performed a stunt with a cost attached, such as losing an action, movement, falling flat, or some other condition, then provide an equal benefit for success. Maybe they gain an extra movement, avoid a hazard, cause extra damage, or ignore a normally restrictive condition. So, my thing is it's always cost and reward. Give an equal cost, equal reward. And it doesn't have to be very big. It doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be like, oh, you get 5 extra actions or anything like that. Just also maybe give some inspiration for the fact that they even tried to do it in the first place. John Wright says, I liked it when Bruce Lee re-choreographed his action scenes on the Green Hornet show. Yeah. Yeah. If those who don't know, like Bruce Lee was basically typecast as the badass uh, uh, sidekick, and was just looked around at all the action and was like, this sucks. Deadman says, Rumble in the Bronx, Jackie Chan. Yeah. Anyway, there's a ton of Jackie Chan, Drunken Master 2. Oh my goodness. Mike says swinging from the chandelier at my table will add movement over difficult terrain. Uh, Best pass that athletics acrobatics check though. Now the thing is, if the table is difficult terrain or is cover or is a thing, yeah, I would allow that acrobatics check, but then that means that like Mike Gould says, or you're prone on the table. But my issue with that is great. There's a drawback to it, but what's the benefit, right? If a person if a no one goes to no one gambles in casinos because they lose money, right? The idea is that they hope to gain something from doing the thing. Otherwise, why not just walk around the table? Yeah, Wayne says, no. The idea is not to overcomplicate things. Exactly. So the more we start asking our players, well, you need to make a role for that, and failure is always a possibility. Then what happens with success? if there's no benefit to doing the thing, then you are teaching your players not to do the thing. They'll never swing on chandeliers again. They'll go, well, all you're going to do is say, make a roll and I fall. But what happens if I succeed? The other player that just walked around the table and ignored the chandelier that you purposefully put in front of me to swing on. It's like, nah, we're not going to do that. And one of the fears I brought on here is spamming, or the repeated use of an action or advantage can loom on the horizon when adjudicating stunts. Limit this activity based on the specific conditions present in the environment. Remember, chandelier swinging is only as present and common as chandeliers become in every encounter, right? Unless you're sticking chandeliers in every room, and PCs are like, I'm swinging over all things in chandelier. That's you can prevent spamming by going you know, there's a chandelier here, but there's not a chandelier everywhere. Um, with unique locations and a cornucopia of various encounters, the chances of repeated use from your players group will be mitigated. Enemies are observant. When first use, surprise is expected. The second time is predictable. Right. So, yeah, getting rid of the spamming stuff. Then we talk about MacGuffins. I will be bringing up MacGuffins quite a bit as we go through this little list that I had made. Um, I even found it. I think it was on Wikipedia or something. MacGuffin. In fiction, a MacGuffin is an object, device, or event that is necessary to the plot and the motivation of the characters, but insignificant, unimportant, or irrelevant in itself. The term was originated by Angus MacPhail for film, adopted by Alfred Hitchcock, and later extended to a similar device in other fiction. So this isn't a negative term, but it just I will be using the word MacGuffin to represent like a person, place, or thing the player characters need. Because if we want to have alternate objectives other than one side or the other side is dead, PCs need to kill monsters, monsters try to kill PCs, and you want to do other things to have uh, air quotes win conditions, then we kind of need MacGuffins. And MacGuffins can be pretty simple, right? Like a MacGuffin could be uh, reaching for a lever, finding a ring, um, uh, kidnapped hostages, a religious totem, a person, place, or thing, or technically it could be an idea as well, like a piece of knowledge. But yeah, MacGuffins are just objects that you can get. Now, terrible MacGuffins. There have been movies that have had MacGuffins, and at the end of the movie, you don't know what the MacGuffin is. Two movies in particular had MacGuffins that they never tell to the public that is watching the movie. One of them is Mission Impossible 3, had a thing known as the rabbit's foot, and you never know what the rabbit's foot is, except that it is very dangerous. And there's another movie called Ronin about spies in Europe. And there's a suitcase, and they open up the suitcase, and a glowing light shines from the suitcase. There's a third movie that did the same thing. Anyway, there's a light that shines on the characters' faces when they open up the suitcase. They close the suitcase, so the suitcase is the MacGuffin, but you never find out what's in it. Funky, but yeah. Mike says, I encourage heroics, but they're never free. It's a risk versus reward the best description. Yep. Yeah. I go very narrative. So if somebody comes up with an idea and they find something or heck place something in the scene and I'm like, that sounds really cool. Cool. All right. Mike says, because once you reward only descriptions, you end up with 15-minute monologues around the table. That's the problem. Like I say, MacGuffins, I'm loving it. I feel like I want to buy myself a MacGuffin right now. Egg a muffin right now. J Dub says a particularly badass battle move could inspire the morale of fellow party members and or intimidate the morale of other opponents. Yep, yep, yep. Depending on what they do. William says, I think GMs can get too caught up in using mechanics and overuse them. If it's not critical, life or death, etc. I don't like rules. I prefer narration. Me too. Me too. Like if a PC kills an enemy, I don't care how they did it. Just tell me how cool, badass your character is, and just let them describe how they take them out. Samara says, you have a point there, but I am a fan of more dice, not less. Okay, all right, well, okay. Thundar. Chthonic musings. I love Thunder the Barbarian. Wayne says, style differences. Neither is incorrect, but one makes for faster play, less rules say, or looking at charts, which slows play. And to me, slow play is less fun for everyone. It depends on what it is, right? It is all circumstantial because both more dice, less dice, more rolling, less rolling can change based on the player character, the people you have at table, players, and the characters that they're playing. Yeah, it's cool to rip off the arm or leg of an opponent and then use the severed limb as a club or on the other opponent's. Hell's yes. uh, I've had player characters do that plenty of times. I pull his organs out and strangle him with his own small intestine or something, right? Yeah, yeah. Anyway, okay. So alternate objectives. So let's go down this list. Um, and I have examples under each of these. So we're not going to go too much deep into the examples I have underneath of these. So alternate objectives for my list, I have acquire, bypass, chase, discover, distract, parlay, race, which is a little bit separate than chase, sabotage, search, subterfuge, and vanguard. So these alternate objectives are basically catch-alls for like when you're encounter designing. What can we do to not just have a bunch of enemies on one side of a flat plane of existence and our PCs on the other are heroes, and then what are they trying to do? So acquire is basically the party must find the MacGuffin, a person, place, or thing. To add continued tension, the MacGuffin may be fragile, obstinate, or difficult to protect or transport. And so acquire means that the player characters have to acquire something. We've seen this plenty of times in movies and TV shows. They need to get a file. They need to rescue someone. They need to usually it's a person or an object, a thing. Sometimes they have to get to a place, but basically they have to acquire something. And a lot of times, what happens is if you want a very short acquirement kind of thing, then getting a document, getting a magic item, a magic tome is pretty easy, right? Put it up on a dais. PCs need to get to it. Enemies are in the way. Maybe your fastest, most athletic PC maneuvers around the enemies to acquire the thing, and then you just run for it, right? So that's a acquirement. Now I added in for the tension, it might be fragile, obstinate, or difficult to protect or transport. We've seen this. How many times have we seen life and death situation, and some a hole is like, I can't leave. I'm you know, I'm an important dignitary. Don't grab me by my arm and pull me out of danger, right? Or the I'm too scared to move. I'm curled up in the corner. I can't reach for you with the building on fire and everything collapsing around me and there's gunfire, or we see that in rescue shows, right? What's some other ones? Somebody's obstinate. They don't like being told what to do. Don't tell me what to do, blah blah. Maybe it's fragile. It's made out of glass. It's a computer chip, and you've got to watch out for it. Maybe it's a nuclear fissible material or a bomb, and it's like, don't jostle it around too much. You can't just stick it in your pocket and run. Maybe you have to carry it very gently or something like that. So yeah, yeah, yeah. Maybe it's something that's difficult to protect. Maybe it's too large for a single human being to like stand in front of it. It could be the size of a very large vehicle or inside of a large wagon or something. So an acquirement is a pretty simple, very easy to think of alternate objective. Bypass is another one where this one has a lot to do with time issues. There are a number of video games that the one for some reason the one that comes to mind for me is Deus Ex Machina, which is like Deus Ex. I'm sorry, where you do you want to run and gun through the game or do you just want to bypass all the hazards? And if you have a time limit, if you have express to your players, listen, you need to get from A to B, and you don't have time to bother with all of the enemies in between. Bypass is pretty good. Also, bypassing also might have like maybe the player characters understand that it's not five hobgoblins, it's 500 hobgoblins. And if an alarm goes up, you're going to just be besieged by too many enemies. And so bypassing, what are some examples I hear? Sneak past, blend in, observe, or trek, right? Like you guys know about sneaking past, hiding in shadows, moving silently, remaining quiet, blending in. The party uses disguises and unobtrusive behavior to fade into the background. You know, just don't draw attention to yourselves. Observe is just remaining in a hidden space and being vigilant. Maybe being observant, so you discover the timing of guards. Maybe there's a door that opens and closes a particular way, or there's a code, a verbal code or a fingerprint scanner or something, and observe it. And last one is the trek. The best way to avoid the fight is to scale, swim, crawl, swing across hazardous environments, outpacing enemies to get from A to B. Uh, and then we have our chase. Let me get back into the chat, see what everyone else has to say. Suicide Kings with Christopher Walken is literally kidnapped the big bad evil guy. Yep. The MacGuffin might be the big bad evil guy too, so that is an issue. Mm-mm-mm. Legs for the leg through. Zamar says acquire information. How you do so is irrelevant. Just get the information. Right. Maybe the information is like I said, it could be a hidden document, it could be locked away, it could be a tome of information that maybe even the PCs don't even know what it is. Roku's like old school Superman's Lois taking close up photos of a T Rex. Yeah, there's always the person that's like, I'm going to step closer to the edge of the cliff and take a photo. Oh no! And then the PCs are like, oh, here we gotta rescue them because they did something stupid. Wayne's like, and hold the big bad evil guy for ransom. It's from itself. John Rice says in a fire, a kid biting the firefighter tried to save them. Yeah, we've seen that. Well, the kid that's like, my doggy's still stuck in there, and then it's like you find out that the doggy's not an actual pet; it's a stuffed animal or something. Like, yeah, mm-mm-mm. Delarius and Associates, the walk-in dude. All right, guys. Okay, so let's continue on with this. So we have a chase. The difference for me from a chase and a race is a chase involves the heroes and the villains, and a race is just the heroes racing from A to B. Right? They've got to get from A to B. So a chase involves another group trying to do something. A chase involves two or more parties increasing or decreasing distance from each other in opposition. A set of requirements is needed to establish when and how any one group escapes or is cornered in a chase. And so you can have various objectives there in a chase. For example, using time or speed, skill or distance. And yes, do these overlap? Of course. So a time issue might be while a group tries to lengthen or shrink the space during the chase, either side may win if given a set of time parameters. You can shrink the time parameters from like days, hours, down to minutes and seconds, right? So, for example, a gathering storm, circling reinforcements, or exhaustion can all be time factors to stop a chase. A classic one is a door or portcullis slowly closing, like blast door slowly closing, and it's not about the PCs defeating the enemies; it's sliding past or under the gate until it closes down. And of course, the enemy is trying to chase after to get past the say closing portcullis as well, or they're trapped inside. When a storm comes, maybe they have to get into a storm shelter, or there is a ship leaving the shore and they've unlashed their. You hear a horn, or some other kind of sailing ship. PCs need to run and jump across to get onto the ship before the enemy does, or maybe the portcullis can only be closed by one side or the other, whoever gets there first. So if the enemy gets there first, they cut the rope, boom, slams down. PCs are trapped in the courtyard. If the PCs get there, they cut the rope, slide up underneath the portcullis, and then they trap the enemy on the other side. Speed is another one. Simply gaining on a foe or leaving a foe in a distance can find a winner and loser in a chase. While calculating speed is a good metric, some sort of additional measurement, such as stamina or agility test, could be used to complete the chase. So, uh, Dungeons and Dragons has a terrible speed mechanism, mm, because it's just measurement of inches and distances and 5 foot squares. But if you add something in there like acrobatics checks or athletics checks or something like that, then maybe somebody can just outpace the other person. And you could do this like three successes in something that isn't in fifth edition, which I wish they had, which is exists in ICRPG, is the sense that the ability to have player characters roll a die to subtract from a thing to measure the success or failure of a thing. So in ICRPG, you have damage dice, but you also have something called effort, and you have a die that is effort, and you have hearts, which are like hit points, but you can apply hearts to anything. So picking a lock has 10 hit points. You roll a die and you subtract from those 10 points that of the lock, and that's to suggest your success or failure in doing a thing. So maybe you need to pick a lock before the room floods. Well, how fast can you pick that lock? In Dungeons and Dragons, it's a skill check, but maybe you might say, okay, you need to have 3 successful skill checks to pick the lock, something like that. There's discoveries like uncovering a weakness or learning lore or predicting behavior or locating the MacGuffin. Um, in these, about learning lore, those can be over a longer period of time. Maybe player characters on a longer trip, but in a short amount of time, it could be learning or predicting behavior, uncovering weakness. Maybe there's a monster that can only reach up high enough, and if the player characters just scale across the edge of the cliff, the monster can't reach them. Or maybe there's a construct that only operates in the room, but if you leave the room, the construct will go back and stand on its pedestal or something. You can uncover a weakness. Vampires are very classic for this. It's vulnerable to acid or daylight, or stays away from holy symbols or something like that. And maybe learning that weakness, uh, the creature is drawn to. You have a carcass. You can throw the carcass in front of the monster so it can chow out on that, so you can get away from it. Um, Maybe you don't even know where the MacGuffin is, so you can discover it. So that might be the objective in and of itself. I'm looking at you, phylactery for the Lich, right? Like learning where the phylactery is might be more important, or a better win condition for, say, third level characters to defeat the Lich than going up head to head with it. Um, Again, distract. Distract is another one where uh, you the win condition is distracting the enemy, like using a decoy or diversion, an illusion, or even coming up with a new objective. For example, with a decoy, the party embodies an identity desired by the enemy. The enemy then maintains focus on the decoy, leading the enemy away from its charge. So maybe the PCs, it's not destroying the enemy, it's basically being nice and loud and bright, so the enemy leaves and goes to the east, allowing an opening to the west for maybe allies to move past the enemy. A diversion is a simple sound, image, or scent that causes an adversary to become distracted and leave an area. The smell of blood, sound of predators, or heraldic flags are examples. There's also illusions. Like, while not necessary to use arcane methods, an illusion is a full body disguise or camouflage to fool an opponent. The illusion could intimidate, obfuscate, or even persuade an adversary to choose not to engage in violence, like a wizard creating an illusion of a giant dragon scaring away the kobolds, right? Um, a new objective, such as like starting a fire, causing a flood, inciting a riot, or collapsing a structure, are possible new objectives an opponent may be more concerned about than the party, such as releasing prey, the arrival of important dignitaries, or the opening or closed opening. I Wow, that's terrible of me. Okay, opening up or closing of gates are also examples of new objectives for enemies. So, for example, um, starting a fire when important dignitaries are arriving at the keep might distract the guards, because the guards are more concerned about appearances or something. Starting a fire is another thing where the city might have to stop and create a bucket brigade, or inciting a riot where the city guard might have to calm everybody down or beat people about the head and shoulders, that kind of stuff. So let's get back into our see what our co-hosts have to say, because I know I'm missing a lot. Mm-mm. Yep, John Rice's classic MacGuffin, the Rebel Death Star plans in R2D2's memory banks. Exactly. Exactly. Now they got distracted because Darth Vader showed up, but really the objective was get the plans, give them to a Jedi, get the Jedi onto the Death Star, and then uh, either steal the plans or sabotage the, which we're going to get into a sabotage the Death Star. Right now, you know, Darth Vader showed up, but that what the mission wasn't to kill all the stormtroopers. The mission was something else. Roka says I had one of those Joe MacGuffins in my last Star Without Number campaign. Okay, a rogue true AI fled from its functions in regulating the systems of a space station, and we had to get it back unharmed. Ooh, that's a good one. So Mara says, DC is 15. Roll, lockpick. Roll below 10 and you break your pick. Roll below 15 and you need to roll again. DC plus 2. Okay, right. Roll 15 to 18 and you open it on your next turn. Roll 19 plus and it's open. Now, um, Z, you're talking about um, yes and no but. um, gradu gradulated no granulated success and failure, gradient success and failure, damn it. Okay, so something else that's very easy to do, Pathfinder has this a bit. Fifth edition actually has it, but they actually stuffed it into monsters. So in fifth edition with the D20, we don't necessarily have to comply with pass fail. If you do a +5 -5 and +10 -10, you can do a um, gradient success and failure. So an example would be picking a lock, right? If you're within 5, above or below, you can do success or failure with a consequence. You break a lock tool, lock pick, you drop it, you make a sound, you somehow finagle a lock. Now it's even harder to open, right? Whereas if you go -10, maybe your lock pick breaks in the lock and now there's just no way to pick it, right? Or you open up the lock, but on the other side of the lock a chain unravels and it causes a lot of sound and it draws the guards or something. Or you just don't you basically it's just impossible for you to open up this lock. It's a lock that you've never seen before, or you've heard a legendary thing about. Whereas at +10, not only do you open a lock, maybe a lock of the similar nature later on, you just instantly know how to open it, right? You open one lock, you can open them all. So there is a way to do granulated success and failure. It's just a little bit harder to describe, but like +5 -5 and +10 -10 is a pretty good thing to do. Mike says divination spells can ruin third pillar moments. The most common MacGuffin is information. Yep, find out who or why. The problem is spells like Zone of Truth or Speak with Dead, end run investigators. Somewhat. Um, I've always felt like Speak with Dead, Speak with Animals is always from the point of view of the person. So someone who's get smacked in the back of the head with a hammer, they don't know why they died, right? They died, but they don't know. Trauma has a big thing that's with that. Zone of Truth is people's truths are only true unto themselves. So if a zone of truth is where'd the enemy go, and they say they went down the left hallway, right? Or the big bad evil guys is afraid of fire. That may be true to them, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's true to the situation. Which also the problem doing that too often by going like your information gathering spell doesn't work the way you think it does, and you do that too often, basically what your PCs are going to fold their arms and pout and go, well, you're nerfing my abilities, right? So uh, I would have a talk about that, but I would definitely do it from the point of view narratively of the person involved in the thing, right? Michael says, however, remember that a captured villain need not answer the PC's questions. He just has to speak truth, right? If he knows the PC secrets, he might expose those or brag about exploits or otherwise change the subject. Yeah, if you've ever seen the Ant-Man movies, what was it, Ant-Man and the Wasp, where where oh, what's the character's name? Where they speak to his friend and his friend is just like going on and on and on with a long ass story, and it's like get to the point. It's like speaking the truth on everything. Yeah, yeah. Classic Raymond Reddington movies. Yep, 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 yep. Absolutely. All right, guys. So let's see. As we are moving on here, we do have parlay. That's a big social thing. I got some misspellings in here. Parlay, such as like negotiate, plead, intimidate, or convince. Negotiations, you guys know what that is. We don't have to fight. You take this thing, we take this thing, we make an agreement, we move on. Plead, the PCs are in a place of weakness, or this could be a distraction or subterfuge objective. They must beg and plead with their adversaries for safety and appeasement. I would say this is probably almost never used by player characters, but it's a possibility. We also have intimidate and convince. Intimidation, that's easy. Again, with the wizard, creating an illusion of a dragon to scare away the kobolds. Um, Big burly PCs, murder, killing half of the group, cause a morale check, causing an enemy to run away. Intimidation could just be displays of power. Uh, Maybe simply just using magic power or shape shifting or something could scare an enemy. Convince both sides, the PCs and enemy, must be open to preventing or stopping a violent clash. Maybe neither side, the burning building, the flooding room, the collapsing structure. Maybe both sides are like, yeah, maybe we shouldn't have to fight right now. Maybe the sinking ship, maybe we just need to swim to shore first. Now, there might be a chase to get to a lifeboat, and there might be some kind of a distraction thing to say, hey, there's a lifeboat on the other side of the ship, and there isn't, and the PCs jump into the lifeboat to get off the sinking ship. Or maybe there's a MacGuffin inside the bowels of the sinking ship with the enemy around, and the enemy wants the exact same thing, but the PCs also want to get to the boat to get off the sinking ship craft, and blah 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 blah. Right? A race involves only the PCs. While enemies may be in the vicinity, the race is primarily about the party and their own objectives. And again, racing towards an objective, racing away from danger, across a hazard, and did I have another one? Or past danger. So of course, a race towards an objective, ship leaving shore, something sinking in the quicksand, basically racing towards something, a closing door, a it doesn't matter what it is. It's going away. Like the time, space, or energy to get to the MacGuffin is limited. A powerful enemy may make a limited public appearance. Kidnapped victims may have sent a signal, which once discovered means they will be moved and hidden, or an ancient curse or astrological alignment may come only once in a lifetime. So an example may be like the PCs know that there's kidnapped nobles. The PCs are there to rescue them. The nobles drop something out of a window or sent up a flare. The enemy's like, oh no, we have to move our kidnappers because we chain them up in a dungeon. PCs need to race there to get there first before they are moved or killed or something like that. Um, Maybe you're racing away from danger. Again, collapsing structures, fire, forest fire, burning building, flooding valley, rock slides, avalanches. Those are what's something man-made? A clock tower, and every time the bell rings, it's like a deafening ring. You want to get the hell out of there or something. A castle is under construction, and there's like half of it is being constructed, and maybe part of it might collapse or something like that. Of course, crossing a hazard like a rope bridge, frozen lake, crumbling cliff, or dilapidated old rooftop are examples of a need to cross it with alacrity. Others, like fields of battle, fast rushing rivers, soft sandy dunes, dank swamps, are just a few examples. Crossing a hazard. to prevent harm or escape the region before enemies attack. So maybe crossing the hazard may not be the hazard itself may not be a problem, but being attacked by enemies while you're in the hazard is a problem. So crossing a swamp is dangerous. Crossing a swamp and then being attacked by alligators might double the difficulty, right? And then sometimes it's just getting past dangers, like burning forests, lava flows, frozen landscapes, fields of arrow fire, that kind of stuff. Maybe it's very dangerous anyway, and the PCs need to get from A to B and get through the danger, right? Take the dash action. You can run through the battlefield, and you're only attacked 3 times by the arrows. If you move at your standard speed, you might be attacked 6 times. If you decide to crawl, maybe you're attacked like 12 times or something like that. There's also sabotage. PCs love sabotage, right? So destroying the objective, eliminating defensive structures is an idea. Ruining a safe passageway for the enemy or blocking reinforcements may also be a possibility for sabotage. Blocking reinforcements, maybe the PCs using one of the other objectives, they know there's 500 hobgoblins, but if they cause an avalanche or rock slide or close the portcullis, they can stop the reinforcements from getting there. So then the PCs can go on and murder kill the big bad evil guy without reinforcements coming behind them. Search is another one, like searching for concealed or secret passageways. Um, Difference between concealed and secret would be concealed would be carpet on the floor, tapestry on the wall, throne, but there's something behind it. And then a secret passageway would be something that blends into the wall and you can't notice it, or you must speak certain words to activate it, or you need to pull the proper book on the bookshelf to open up the passageway. But concealed is just you just don't see it. Maybe it could be concealed through circumstance, like rubble fell down or the roof collapsed, but there is actually a passageway behind the rubble. Searching for valuable items and treasure, especially even finding a magic item that can be used to defeat the enemy, or back in OSR, finding the treasure and getting out without having a fight is also an idea. Blackmail and weaknesses. Maybe the idea is not really to defeat the enemy head on, but to find something that you can hold over the enemy to keep the enemy from doing what it's doing. Like the phylactery for a lich is one, getting its weakness. Blackmail and weaknesses may be things like documents, learning about someone's bloodline, knowing about an important noble has a illicit connection with the thieves guild or something like that, and no, you'll get hung in the rafters if you murder the noble, but if you expose the blackmail, then politically that ruins the noble and you've won, right? Alternate win MacGuffin could be like the MacGuffin itself could end all the conflicts, like taking that simple gold ring and tossing it into a volcanic forge from which it was forged may end the war. Instead of standing and fighting eternally, first one has to find the ring, then find a way to the volcano, then get inside unseen, right? So we know that one. And then we have subterfuge, and vanguard, and then I'll get back into talking to you guys. Subterfuge, of course, is using like deception, trickery, intrigue, or enticement. Subterfuge, deception, basically disguises, convincing the guards that you belong inside, things like that. Trickery is another thing. Sights, sound, sensations to distract somebody. That goes with the distraction thing. Subterfuge may also be like. Uh, I have forged papers. I have authority over you to make the enemy do a thing. Um, Convincing the hobgoblins that we are shapeshifted hobgoblins that were sent to be spies inside the human lands, and even though we don't look like you, we actually are you. Mm, sorry. Intrigue is a little bit longer, but intrigue could be like uh, oh, what's a good intrigue one? Game of Thrones intrigue. We're supposed to be enemies, but if we temporarily work together, we can achieve a goal. But really, what you're trying to do is get on the sailing ship with the enemy to then turn the tides and then set the thing on fire or steal the thing inside. But the enemy is looking at you. That kind of stuff. Vanguarding. It's basically stopping to defend something, defend a location maybe, or be a bodyguard to protect somebody important or people that are important. You can reinforce people who are in a weak state. So you're there, you've been sent there to reinforce uh, an army or a platoon or something, whatever. I don't know. And there's martyrdom, last one standing. In this objective, the PCs remain behind, knowing that they are the targets of overwhelming force as innocents or other MacGuffins leave in haste. This is a stationary decoy objective. So essentially, the PCs are like staying to suffer the harm while the real objective leaves while the PCs remain in a single the Alamo. Okay, let's get back into what you guys have to say. Sorry, because I can't see it while I'm paging through. Uh, Samar says my whole thing for Zone of Truth is that I have not revealed that there is a lie, not what the truth is, or literally not be able to speak a lie, which opens up what Mike said. They can just create an illusion of a dragon over a PC who just drank a potion of fire breath. NPCs can't tell if the PC just transformed into a dragon from the potion or not. Very scary, trust me. Yep, ticking time bomb. Yeah, and I do agree. Like I don't like easy buttons. I don't like things that are like nevers, automatic, always. Uh, I don't like those things because it's just another one of those. What happens is there's never mystery because we know there's something called Zone of Truth to Speak with Dead, right? And it requires us having to go out of our way as encounter designers to outthink the thing that has created the problem in the first place. And that's what I think is terrible game design. If PCs can never be lost, then there's no reason to create encounters where they get lost and have to find their way out, right, of a maze or something like that. Um, Mike says, and let's be clear, I have no problem with spells like these. I have a problem with PCs spamming those spells as opposed to putting in the work. They could try other things too, not just wave the cleric forward like an inquisitor. Yeah. And that's my issue. Like uh, with 99% of most character classes having access to some magical effects and or class abilities that make things easy, finding food instantly, climbing things easily, um, uh, that kind of stuff, having super senses that allow them to find stuff. Yeah. Zamar says Zone of Truth spell components, a tinderbox, metal rod, and ritual dagger. Yeah, we forget about those things too. Components, spells that require you to see, spells that require you to sense a thing. So anyway, let me end on this part for environmental descriptors. Um, actually, I'll increase the size of this so people online can see it. So for me, for environmental descriptors, these are ways to shape the location. I don't know if you want to call it a lair, a haven, wherever. There's a joke. No matter where you go, there you are. So when the player characters are anywhere, no matter what, wherever they're at, in anywhere in the environment, use that environment to change the battlefield in many ways, right? And so here are some catch-all phrases. I'm going to end up describing these. Like I said, this is a document I've been working on, but these are catch-alls. So we have aftermath, conditional, escalating, mobile, random, reactive, stacked, static, timed, trapped, and triggered. Okay, so before we get to the end of this, here are some descriptions. Aftermath. Aftermath is players and or the enemies do something to change the environment. PCs that set fire to the building, right? Goes from normal building to building on fire. Okay, so player character casts fireball. All the evocation spells, fireballs, rays of frost, lightning bolts, grease spells, whatever. They cast it. Say to yourself, wait a minute, wouldn't that leave residue? Wouldn't that? How many times have we seen all the flammable spells say somewhere in there and sets fire to flammable objects? Now that's aftermath. So, um, destructive aftermath. Your PC's growing large while shaping into large things. Berserker Enraged characters destroying things. Now there's debris. That chandelier or giant table with food on it gets flipped over. It's not only difficult terrain, which is a pretty simple thing, just halves movement. It's kind of boring and static, but maybe it becomes cover, or maybe it just becomes an obstacle that, unless you make a roll to climb over top of it, it presents a problem both sides. So aftermath is something that's done during the encounter. Conditional things are, it's only dangerous if um, you smell. There is gas in the room that is flammable. If someone ignites it with a lightning bolt or fireball or flame, then something happens. So it's an if then conditional thing. It's not a problem walking across the frozen uh, lake unless heavy weight is put on it. The rope bridge won't collapse unless everyone, brings 500 pounds of gold. So those are conditional elements. The avalanche won't happen unless someone makes a loud noise causing an avalanche. Escalating things. Escalating is, it's getting worse and worse. Room starts to flood. It's only at your ankles. Now it's at your calves. Now it's at your knees. Now it's on your thigh. Now it's at your waist. Now it's on your chest. Escalating. A burning building. It's in a corner. Now it fills the room. Now it's creeping up to the rooftop. Now it's anything that's escalating and getting worse. Mobile. Maybe there's something moving around, or it moves you. Strong winds, conveyor belts, raging rivers. Anything that moves you, it's mobile. Maybe there's something randomly rolling around. Um, what's really um, a hurricane or tornado sweeps through an area and lifts up heavy objects and throws them through the air, right? There are random things slamming down around, in and around everyone. So um, uh, an out of control object or something could be mobile. Random could be random elements are happening in and around you. Bolts of lightning, strong winds, hail. What's something? A collapsing building. Maybe uh, something is on fire that could hurt you, or maybe large debris could trap you, or you could fall through the crumbling steps, or let's go with the same fire in a forest fire. Maybe there's something random like choking smoke, or a burning tree traps you underneath it, or there's the smoke is so heavy you can't see through it. Right, so the random events. Random could be a battlefield. There's arrows flying through the air. You've got to dodge them, or there's a ballista that throws a big giant arrow through the air, or um, cavalry runs through your region, or so on and so like. Reactives are things that are again similar to conditional. It is reactive. So if every time you move through the area, it causes a thing. If you move slow, nothing happens. If you move fast, it does happen. Stacking is PCs are in an area and the floodwaters are getting higher, as well as alligators are coming into the area, as well as things are dislodging in the region, and now there are things floating in the water that might trap you inside of it, as well as, and each as over time things start stacking and getting worse and worse. Similar to escalation, but this is stacking. Escalation is one thing getting worse. Stacking is like multiple things getting worse. Static is very simple. Static is, if you're in it, it's harmful. If you're not in it, it's not harmful. Static things are fog, darkness, underwater, tight spaces. If you're in it, it's horrible. It's hazardous. If you're out of it, it's not horrible. It's not hazardous. And those are very simple things where you don't have a lot of die rolls. You don't have to track anything. That's the most simple of environmental descriptors. Timed are things where PCs know that over time something's going to happen. So they look up and they see the tower about to crumble, and it's like, we've got 3 rounds to get the hell out of here. A bomb going off is a very example of something being timed. Um, a timed event could be seeing 50-foot waves sweeping onto shore and over the docks. You look out there and you go, we've got 2 rounds to get the hell out of here before it slams onto the shore. Something that is trapped. Usually that's man made. something that's trapped. You know, if you touch this or move past it or walk across it or stand in the laser or stand under the eyes of the statue or something, you know it's trapped. And if you touch it or move it or get in the way, it will be triggered. And then we have triggered. And triggering is similar to being trapped. Like, you know that there's a trap. Triggering doesn't necessarily have to be man-made, but it could trigger off something that can happen. For example, um, you could trigger an avalanche. You could walk across a frozen lake. You could, and it starts to crack. I'm trying to think of something man-made. A heavily loaded wagon might have a chalk to keep it from rolling down the steep cobblestone street, and you know if you do this thing, it'll trigger off a series of events, and so that might be a thing. A aquifer in the Underdark, you know there's water behind this wall, and all you got to do is hit it once, and it'll start to crumble, and then the waters will flood down into the Underdark or something like that. There's more detail in that. I haven't really figured all the detail, but that's all. Okay, so here we go. Back to our co-host here. Stone to Mud is a good environmental alteration spell that can be used tactically. Yeah, so can create water. Hells yes. Pass wall was a common one. Pass wall was an easy one that used to happen all the time. That my player characters loved themselves some pass wall. But stone to mud and mud to stone or stone to flesh is another one that's pretty sick, but a common one they would use. Yeah, trust me, my current sorcerer character has reminded the DM about ignition sources. Yeah. Indiana Jones in the Idol Cave at the beginning of Raiders of the Lost Ark is a good one. Yep. Um, Put your hand in front of the sunlight and the javelins shoot across. So already knew it. Now here's something that I think might be controversial to say, but I think it's a truism in the sense of I traps themselves are gotchas. But if you let the player characters know that there are traps and hazards, let them know that there's dead bodies that were stuck by javelins, right? Let them know what the danger is. I don't think it takes away the tension. I think what happens is it may force them to be problem solving to get past the hazard itself. So, letting them know that there are pit traps with spikes at the bottom in the dungeon doesn't spoil the pit trap idea. It just makes it more dangerous, right? So maybe there are enemies in the dungeon that try to push the PCs into the trap. Maybe the PCs use the pit traps to for their benefit. Maybe the undead that they're running from can be convinced to try to chase them. PCs jump across the pit. Undead, pretty mindless. Maybe they fall into the pit, right? Unless too many undead fall in the pit and they just climb over themselves. But whatever. But you get the point. Letting PCs know about hazards, foreshadowing, I think is a good tool as well. Um, Mike says some older D&D modules would have triggers like alarms. Yep, PCs need to sneak in a fortification, and the PC's actions alter or change the change of triggering that alarm. Uh, I Not quite the same, but the Zelda games are something like this, right? Where you pick up an object or you learn about a transition in the dungeon. And if you do a thing, it changes the dungeon itself. Water happens to be a very common thing. Shifting walls may be another thing in dungeons. Um, Learning about what the enemy is doing. Like, for example, maybe the enemy is going to go to war and they have siege engines, right? Like battering rams and towers and all those kind of things, right? And the player characters know about those and they could sabotage them, and then that creates obstacles in the way, and then uh, unfortunately, we could look at World War I as examples of like trench warfare that had a lot of different hazards, barbed wire and gunfire across battlefields, and lots of pits to fall into, unexploding ordnance, and uh, deep trenches to have to navigate through, as well as mortar fire and that kind of stuff. And you could easily change that into like arcane and magical enemies and things like that as well. Zamar says there is a pit trap. One of the PCs fell into the pit trap. They are floating in a pit trap. Oh no, they're in a slime cube. Yeah, yeah, yeah. The pit trap filled with the gelatinous cube. Yeah, it was. That's a Gaxian kind of thing with the gelatinous cube in the hallway. You see it. You see a skeleton in the hallway. Great, we attacked the skeleton, and it's like, nope, it's just floating in the gelatinous cube, which is why it was always a cube. It was a 10-foot cube because back in the day, modules were designed with 10-foot by 10-foot squares with grid paper in the hallway and such. So my throat is very dry. So anyway, guys, very quick, very not very exciting overview, but again, just me just going like, if we have alternate objectives, we learn to use them, maybe find some kind of common language about them. And again, this was just a document I've been working on a little bit here and there. I will differentiate all of them over time, but the idea is like, yeah, John Wright, 3 words: Tomb of Horrors. I I should do a behind the scenes from Tomb of Horrors, like tell people why, basically give out the secrets of it. I Yes, it would spoil it, but I also, it could be a learning lesson for design, since basically nearly the entire module is getting past traps, and there's basically, I think, 2 monsters in it in the entire dungeon, maybe 3. It's very gotcha. It is very gotcha, especially with like the room where your alignment changes, and I think there's something else in there where it you there's like a girdle of sex change device in there. There's one where you get teleported and all your stuff is stripped from you. Brains over brawn. It was definitely brains over brawn. It was designed for high level play because it was basically like, you've got to be smart to get through this, and it it shows the weaknesses in players that always started out at high levels, because lots of features in Tomb of Horrors happened, albeit in small chunks, in lower level play. And it told you to use the 10-foot pole, bring the chickens, bring the the marbles, bring the dust, the powder or the sand or whatever, bring it with you because you're gonna need it. Yeah, Z says should do one on spell components as well. I think that that's an untapped resource for storytelling that we all just hand wave. I know I'm guilty of it. I'm definitely guilty of it. I would include with spell components as well as spell limitations. Spells that require you to see your target, spells that require you to touch your target, spells that require you to, some spells you don't have to see your target, but you have to know that they are there, right? Like I think like holy word, you don't need to see them, but they have to be able to hear you. Whereas, oh, there's another healing spell where you can only use it, you can only buff your allies if you can see them, which means like in fog, darkness, smoke, dense jungle, um a maze full of pillars, someplace out in like the dry mesas and plateaus of Arizona where there's lots of like um, deep crevices that have twists and turns, and you can't see your allies. Maybe that might be a thing where you can't see them. You know they're ahead of you. Yeah, my monster parts and spell components. I love that. I, we went a little bit too far into that in my gaming group, where everybody was just walking around with like sacks where like blood was pooling at the bottom of it. It was getting all like it was pretty nasty. People carrying eyeballs and stuff. Zamar says the ability to break those rules make for great story moments, or those rules hurting your ability to do your thing makes for great tactical moments. Yes, yeah. We used to come up with our own spells by breaking the spell and making that a brand new spell. So like the floating disk, the tensor's floating disk spell has I don't know, a laundry list of limitations, and then we would just get rid of one of the limitations and make that a spell that a player could hunt for, or could achieve during uh, level advancement and things like that. And it would take up a spell slot. So we used to do that. Yep. But anyway, guys, let's get out of here. Thank you very much for being part of the third Pillar Thursday, all about exploration. Thank you very much for the channel. Please like, share, subscribe. Gotta go. Tomorrow is Future Friday, and on our Future Friday, we are going to look at Mothership and a supplement for it called Dive. So, yep. Anyway, guys, got to get out of here. Thank you very much. I will see you later. Peace.